Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of 4GQ TV. We have a fantastic guest here with me. Before I introduce him, I'll introduce my co-host Paul, known in the community as Cerebral Paul. And we have Jimmy Palmiotti, who I just want to say I have loved his work forever. I love Amanda's work. I love everybody that you guys associate with at Paper Films as well. You guys always have good people with you, around you. And I see you at conventions. I saw you at the one in Lakeland that we had, I think, a year or two ago. Saw you at MegaCon. I hope to see you at San Diego Comic-Con sometime again. But
Yeah, we're going this year. I don't know if you're going to San Diego this year or not.
we are.
You are okay. Yeah, yeah. I don't always have a table or a booth there. I'm kind of like a hit and run person. Amanda and I actually go there to relax and then have dinners with friends. The couple of panels we do and maybe a random signing, but we don't really actually work hard at that con. We're not unless they make us a guest, we're not going to sit down. So unless they're going to pay our way, we just go to the con for social reasons. We've only been invited to the con, I think, once in I can't even maybe 30 years, maybe twice in 30 years, because Amanda got invited once and I got invited once, which is kind of crappy, you know.
Oh
It's not a
wow.
great ratio.
No, that 30 years. Wow.
30,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. It's been going since 91,
okay.
and yeah, I personally only got invited once as a guest. And again, Amanda once as a guest, but when they invite one of us, the two of us go, so yeah, they're very overdue. They're very, very overdue for that. But they seem to prioritize a lot of certain people way, way ahead of us all the time. So we're okay with that. I think I have to be either on my deathbed or I don't know what. I don't know what. I have to win a bunch of awards, I guess. If I get nominated for a bunch of Eisners. But I'm not one of those guys that gets nominated for Eisners. I kind of write comics that are fun and crazy and not worrying about awards or trying to please audiences. I kind of write things for myself and hope they find an audience, Um, I just think I get better work out of me that way.
Well, it certainly is working for you. I will say that because you have, in the last few years, you have had many successful Kickstarters. I'd like to say,
Yeah.
um, and that's a huge thing to tell creators. Hey, listen, if you work for a big publisher, you can also be successful with your own work. And I think that you
Yeah,
really
yeah. I
shine
mean,
in that.
it came out of necessity because I've been working professionally where I'm getting paid since 91, and that's a lot of years. And had a lot of success, everything from Marvel Knights to Daredevil, to Harley Quinn, to Jonah Hex, whatever. But but now it's how many years later, and the industry still treats me like I just walked in the door, so I have to hustle for everything, and I have to it's actually become harder in a weird way. I think when you're older too, they want to hire you less. If your pay rate is up or you're older, it's a little. They have ageism's like a big thing in comics. I think it is because we have a lot of really talented older artists that aren't working as much as they should, and boy, their talent beats the pants out of a lot of people's artwork coming up. But it just comes down to you have to start making a career for yourself. You can't depend on companies because companies don't give you 401ks or medical coverage or retirement anything. So I learned early on that creating your own characters is pretty much the only way to make sure you have some kind of career later in life.
And there's something I want to add to that too, Jimmy. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of comic book work for many people is basically like contract work, right? Like it's not like there's an assumption that some people are just permanent employees of these companies, but just want to clear the air on that.
Yeah, I think there's only a couple at each company. There's only a couple of people that are under contract, and I know they give contracts less and less, but there's probably more contract people at Marvel than DC, and it's usually younger people because like older people, more established people, or people my age will look at a contract and notice 1,000 things wrong with it, where a younger person is just so happy to be working there they sign a contract for 2 or 3 years, or there's somebody like an Adam Kubert or somebody who's been around for a long time, where they make sure that they wrangle them and keep them for the company. But for the most part, they don't give contracts like they used to, and they used to actually give medical coverage with contracts, but they don't do that anymore either. So there's less and less appealing about the contracts because they offer you something and then they just bounce you off the book, or the book starts at a new number one and you're off it. And under contract, you're going to have to take some work, whatever they offer you, you're going to have to work with their contract. So I'm not a huge contract person. I only had it once, and I was counting the days when I would get out of it because I sort of got forced into doing a book that I didn't want to do, and I did not have a good time. And I tried to quit the book 3 times, and they wouldn't let me. Yeah.
I would think that would be hard to do a book that you didn't want to do because your heart's not in it. So you're like, oh man.
No, I actually had to work harder because this it was actually Countdown. Remember Countdown for DC?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a committee writing it, and then when they gave us the stories we had to write, they had it all worked out. Like, this is what you're writing. And I was like, this is not good, and I kept changing things, and it was a lot of pushing back and forth because I felt like, I just felt like it was not thought out very well. It was not we call it like a show running. It was not run correctly.
Yeah.
And I remember one point.
Oops, sorry. I was gonna say, if I remember right, Countdown didn't hit that well
anyway. It sold like crazy, but.
Right.
But the story,
you're right.
I defy anyone to tell me what the story's about, because I'm reading it and I don't know what it's about. It felt like this is comics just to make money, and I have a big issue with that because I'd rather not see a book than see something that's done half-assed.
Right.
I figure, an artist and a writers only have a certain amount of time in their life to do these things. Why would I want to commit to something that it was just not for me? And I remember Justin Gray and I rewrote this really long letter to DC how we wanted to get off the book, and they told us, we need you on this. We can't, if you guys leave, it just sends a terrible message. And I'm like, I don't care. Find someone else. Nobody's going to give a crap if I leave. That's how I felt about it. If it was the middle of Harley or Jonah Hex and we left, yes, there would be a reason for people. But for Countdown, it was a committee comic, and anytime you have a committee doing something, it's usually not the greatest thing.
Yep. I was gonna say on the contract thing too, like if you're under contract, if you create something, isn't it like work product basically at that point?
No, so if you create anything in Marvel and DC, you own a tiny piece of it, and I'm talking very tiny. If I told you what the guys like Devin Grayson and J.G. Jones made for creating Yelena at Black Widow for Black Widow, your brains would explode. Your microphones probably maybe cost more money than that. So it's like you get a piece and you get this little thing sometimes at the end of the film that says the thank yous and your names with 100 thank yous, but and sometimes they take care of you, sometimes they don't. It depends on the thing, but you have to kind of fight. They kind of throw money at you that's not realistic, and then you have to push back and say that's not enough, and it's a whole thing. All the time. Instead of just take care of the guy. These are $1 million budget movies. You literally can throw a small amount at a creator and they'd be so happy. But the companies don't learn. They're a lot of them are driven by greed, and greed is not great for creativity. Again, if you take care of your group of people, they come through for you with flying colors each and every time. I have a small group of people. We work with paper films, and everyone is taken care of. I take care of everybody, but before I take care of myself, and my crew is like, all day long, my guys come through me every time, and I come through them. It's a real simple thing, but as we know, corporations are owned by investors, and the bottom line is all they care about. And that's the way of the world. The movies are made by committee. We see those committee movies. They're the ones we watch and we go, what the hell? and that's always been with creative. I think I just think it's people like Image Comics stepping out and doing their own thing, and even what I'm doing with Kickstart, where I own my own material, when the creators own the material, makes a big difference for somebody who's, making. I mean, we make about minimum wage, a little more than minimum wage, a year.
Yeah.
We don't, if you knock down the hours, because the average person to draw a page, I know with Amanda, takes her a long time. If you knock it down to hours, you realize, you're making you're making an okay living, but we're definitely a two creative people household. And I think individually it might be real tough for us to make a living.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that a lot of people don't think about because they see creators at conventions, or they look at the piece of work that the book might sell a lot, and people don't realize that, did they actually get paid a lot for this, compared to what the company pulls in profits? And I'd say no. I think creators deserve a little bit more. That's why when I see creators at conventions,
Yeah.
If I have a little bit of money on me or something, I will support them at conventions because I know that's them selling the product and they're making
Right.
something off it. So it makes me feel better to do that versus than go to. I'm not saying that bookstores are bad, but I just rather the creator get more of the profits than.
Yeah, I feel that same way with music too. I'd rather the person that's making a record. I love when they have a website and I can buy and download their record and pay for it because I know I'm paying them and not a record company. When I go to conventions, I'm always buying creators' books because I know that's the money they have to live off of. I just think a lot of people don't understand that a comic doesn't make a royalty unless the book sells over 60,000 copies. They don't make a royalty. So that's both companies, by the way, both big companies, most companies. And then if you look at how many comics sell over 60,000, you're going to get really depressed, you know, unless it's Batman, Wolverine, or X-Men, or, you know what I mean? It's other than that, everything else does 10, 15,000, 18,000. So these creators never see a royalty on these books. Most creators do not get royalties because they don't hit the numbers. And so when people go to me, well, you must be doing well with your royalties. And I always laugh at that. I'm like, I think I have a check up there for 5 cents. I have one up there for 5 cents. I'm looking at one here. That one, yeah. That one's, yeah, it's around 5 cents, that one. But anyway, I have some of them hanging on my wall because I won't cash them. If they're like less than $1, I don't cash them because I like to look at them once in a while to remind myself why I'm doing my own thing. So it's inspiration for me to work harder on my own properties.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. We saw during the strikes and stuff with the writers and the actors, we saw some of the actors come out and say, we only made 1 cent royalty on a streaming, after a major hit show went to a streaming service. It's like, wow. This really
the guy from Breaking Bad, the young guy the main character, the young guy, I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Aaron Paul.
He said he made no money from Breaking Bad on Netflix, and it's their #1 show. And I'm like, well, that right there should tell you something's wrong, Yeah. And it also tells you when you see the guys that run these networks and these companies, and they're taking home like millions and millions of dollars, and then they get a bonus.
Yeah.
And you have these guys who work every day with a group of people, and they're not getting a royalty. You're like, man, something is wrong. The system is so broken.
Yeah.
And what it is, look, it's the same thing with politics. It's like the people that are rich keep getting richer. There's a whole part of our government that wants to keep protecting rich people and not tax them. And the reality is these guys are taking in millions and millions of dollars just on interest on their other stuff. And
yeah.
And then they have people working for them that can't even, the idea of buying a Starbucks coffee is way beyond them because it's like, well, that's, that'll kill my budget for the week. And you're like, what the hell is going on? And again, it's a lot of time it's for creatives. I always tell people when you go to a convention and a creator's sitting there and they have their books out and buy something from them and have a nice conversation with them. They'll believe me, they'll light up if you're buying their book. They'll talk to you about it. And that's really what we're about with comics and create. We're here to create entertainment for people. And, and not everybody's outgoing. I'm pretty outgoing, but a lot of people are not, you meet them at the cons, they're very quiet. Some artists are so, my wife is the most polite person you'll ever meet. But she can only talk to one person at a time. She's very hyper focused, and they're great people. But anyway, I mean that's how I got into doing the Kickstarters. I saw an opportunity to like take my audience and say, "Hey, audience, will you support? I don't know, 3 times a year. Will you support some madness I do?" And and some people complain. They go to me, well, but that thing cost me $30. And I said, look, I guarantee you, when I was working at Marvel in DC, I was costing you hundreds of dollars,
Yeah.
and I was only seeing a page rate. And I said, 3 times a year, $30 is not going to kill you. Trust me.
No.
I'm gonna give you a good book. You're not going to walk away and say I got ripped off.
Yep.
I'm going to give you something I killed myself on.
Yeah, I know some people who used to work for D&D directly, who used to write stories and for them. They've gone to that where they do theirs now. They do it via Kickstarter because, like you said, they have the freedom to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And it's still for the final product. And 2 or 3 times a year, like you said, not going to kill you.
No, and they're usually getting better work out of them
Yeah.
because they stand behind what they're doing. A lot of people knock stuff out that they just have to do. But when somebody's personally, look, I work with Patrick, my buddy, and we pack every bag and box. We put labels on, we type out labels. We do everything. I bag and board with my guys, and it's not just making the book with the Kickstarter. It's actually like having we have this office in the comic shop that has tons of boxes and bags and boards, and we're constantly putting certificates of authenticity in the books, and if we sign them, we're making something that when you open it, you feel like you've got something personally from me, and every one of my Kickstarters is like that. Then the new one, Fantasima, same way, because it's a 3-part story, so there's 3 comics that come in when you get it, and so it's all about quality, and again, it's minimum amount to show you care. And I got to tell you, I see every name of every backer. When somebody backs my Kickstarter, I know who's backing it. I also know who's not backing it. People tell me they backed it, and I'm like, well, did you use another name? Because I didn't see your name, and but we pack everything. So a lot of times I send when the package goes in my hands, because either me or Patrick, when it goes in my hands, I put a little heart on it on the box. If it goes in my hand, Patrick's like, you're crazy, but that's my thing,
One thing I will say with Fantasima is that I read that it took you about 3 years to make it, right?
Yeah.
So
under 3.
So this is like a lot of hard work that went into this. You want to make a great product that people can read, that people can enjoy, great colors, vibrant colors, great story, So, and I've backed the 2 of your last Kickstarters. I backed the sexy violence one that you mentioned, and I backed the I'm bad with names, but
is it Trigger Girl or Painkiller Jane or Pop Kill? Or,
it was the
the Hunters, maybe
yes,
the
Hunters. Yes.
Hunters.
Okay, so yes, and I will say that you have tiers for everybody, right? Like, so if people look at it and they're like, oh man, I wish I could back this Kickstarter, but I can't afford it. You have digital tiers that are very reasonable. In price, that it's no different than going to your local comic shop and buying a few issues. So you could just
this for this book, it's 90 pages. Break it up into 3 books, right? If you buy the digital, if you back the digital level, it's $15 for the 3 books. But remember, the campaign keeps going, right? So we have stretch goals. So like the one before the Hunters had like, you got the people who backed the digital level, I think it was only $10 because it was 2 books. Actually got like 6 books because we had stretch goals, and we do the stretch goals because obviously we're making more money, so we put it back into the book, or I give everybody a little thank you thing by having another book. So the cheapest level is $15 for the 3 books, And by the time it's done, there might be 6 books in your in your thing, and they're PDFs. So it's not like where you buy comics online and then all of a sudden if the company goes out of business, you don't have the comics anymore.
Mm.
These are PDFs that you own. You can copy, you can put them, read them on your iPad,
Yeah.
on your phone. I do the PDFs mainly for 2 things. One, I want to make it so it's cheap for people who don't want to spend the $30, let's say, for the actual comics. The other reason is shipping is insanely expensive to places like Asia and I do New Zealand and the Philippines and stuff like that. So I want to make something that I can just send in cheap for them. So if they back it, it's $15. They get it in. They get it in their email and they get the PDFs, and that's the full cost. Because if they buy the actual books, it is expensive to ship. I mean, overseas right now has never been more expensive. It's like so insane. I tell people if you're gonna back it overseas, pick up some other books because there's add-ons you can add on. I said make it worth your while because the package is going to be expensive. And it's not like I don't pad the shipping. It's exactly what I'm paying to send the package. But they do it by weight, and so I make the digital level for everybody, and then I do the regular book. So the regular book on this one is with the 3 Joe Linsner covers, which are just stunning. And then I do special ones. I have like the 3 books would have 3 Amanda, my wife's covers, Amanda Connor covers. And we only print like 100 or 200 of those, and that's it. So anybody who gets them, that's the end of the print run. There is no other ones. We don't have them. I'm sorry to say, I can't supply them. And that's sort of like a collector's level. So there's a little bit something for everybody. If you just want to read it, there's a regular level. We have the collector's level, and the collectors love them because I've had some of the books in the past go for crazy amounts of money. And that's great. Secondary market. I don't make a dime off the secondary market, but I'm happy that the people are having fun collecting them. But unlike bigger companies, you can actually see what the print run is by the end of the Kickstarter because we only print 10% more than the orders that come in. So if the main one's only ordered 200, we're probably going to do like 220, 225 on that because I have to have extras for if there's shipping damages. And that's the whole print run on that book. And so the whole thing is, for collectors, Kickstarters are great because there's a limited runs. And even when some people do Kickstarters and then like years later they reprint them in other companies, they usually add different covers. And then those issues they back actually become worth more money because, again, only 2. We had one Pop Kill cover that Adam Hughes did that went off the charts. Like people were able to buy it. I think it was 40 or 50 bucks off the site. And then now they're like $1,000. If you look on eBay, they're like $1,000, $1,200. Crazy stuff. But again, that's the collector's market. That's separate from what I do because I'm just trying to tell a good story and get books out there. And with Fantasima, again, you're right. This one took over 2.5 years to do. Because Pierre Brito, who drew it, also colored it, and he took his time on it. I mean, if you look at the page for the Kickstarter, the art's right there. It's beautiful. It's an epic story about a brother and a sister who get separated when they're young, and the brother thinks the sister's dead, and then years later, he sees a photo of a tribe in South America, and he thinks one of the girls looks like his sister. So he goes down to look for her. Meanwhile, she grew up with this tribe that have like they're in touch with the mystical world. And it's a very Jungle Girl type story told from a little bit of a different perspective. And it's like my female Tarzan. I want to do like a female Tarzan book that was a little different. And it's set in Chile in South America.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. When you wrote the story, what gave you the idea for the story? Did you have to research it? Did you just have this notion in your mind, like, I want to do this? This is what I want to write?
I was reading about, because we all read about like how they cut down rainforests, and I was reading about how quickly, South America, parts of South America were getting destroyed and everything. And then I started reading about the rainforest in Chile, and Chile like is the whole almost west coast of South America, and really interesting place. I started reading books about it, and then I was like, I had an idea. I always liked, so I grew up loving Tarzan. I got to be Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan movies when I was a kid were everything to me. Like I would watch them like people watch superhero movies now. I would watch the old Tarzan movies. And I loved the idea, and I guess that's why I like Westerns too. I love the idea of a place that is still unexplored and it's still wild, like the Wild West, like the West, and in Westerns, in the jungle stuff. I like the idea that there's places that mankind still hasn't been to or ruined yet, because we're really good at ruining things. We're champions at ruining things, human beings. And I wanted to set something there, and I also wanted to do a story that was emotionally driven, because the brother, he's a bit of a mess because he lost his whole family, and then the idea that somebody in his family might still be alive, that gave him a goal in life. Like he was like a kind of a lost soul, and so I kind of liked all the themes in there. And then Pierre and I were working out the visuals, because we said we don't want to make her that she looks like a supermodel in makeup, like a supermodel cave girl, you know. And Pierre was kind of doing his investigating, and the book took a long time because it's pretty accurate with a lot of things, and yet, of course, the fantasy part of it is all crazy. It is a pretty violent book, I will say too, because there's a lot of confrontation, crazy things going on in it. So I don't shy away from the violence or any of that kind of stuff. And since I'm doing it for a limited audience, I'm just going to give my full brain, let it go and do what I want. So Fantasima was just a book of passion that we worked on together for a couple of years. At one point I went to Amsterdam and sat with Pierre. We had some dinner and talking some more about the book. And right before we did the Kickstarter, I did a read through, and we still felt there was something missing. So we added 4 pages, which is the beauty of doing something. I know you guys do it too. Like you watch a movie and you go, God, it needs like 5 more minutes, or I need that one extra scene. What happened? The good news is we got to do that. We gave it to a couple of people to read, and they had some comments, and we're like, great, we can nail it, So the book you get now is exactly the way we see it.
So it's the equivalent of the Snyder cut.
Pretty much, yeah. Without putting the first cut out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without putting, I like when directors do it. It doesn't always make it better though.
Yeah, not always, but there are times.
But they're fun. I mean, I'm still waiting for the first Suicide cut to come, because I know when it aired at first at DC, they cut out a ton of the Joker and Harley stuff.
Ooh.
And I think if that ever makes the light of day, it'll be a more interesting movie, I think. But whatever, look, sometimes you see, like I love the when Coppola did Godfather 1, 2, and 3 and made it one movie in sequential order. I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. And it made 3 watchable for me.
Wow.
I wasn't a big fan of 3. But when you watch it in sequential order, you start to see the roots of what he was trying to do, and it makes more sense. Yeah. But with the comic, until it's actually at the printer, we mess with it up until the last day.
I guess that's the perks of being creator run and creator owned there, that you can make the changes that you see fit, and you don't have to worry about any red tape or editors telling you no, you can't do this, can't do that.
Nope.
So
nope. I write the story how I see it. Only a few times in my career I've had it where the editors said, do whatever you want. One of them was on Harley, like Dan DiDio and Chris Conroy and Katie Kubert. They let us do whatever we wanted, and it paid off. And then when we were doing Jonah Hex, I kind of, Dan's like, you know what you're doing, just go in and do it. Dan DiDio was a really big help, because he understood that I knew who to hire and how to work on the book, and Justin and I really took advantage of that. But I will say, like, the successes I've had in comics, like Daredevil with Joe and Kevin Smith, it was like all the successes I've had have always been the projects where the editors said, you know what, do what you want. We'll see how it shakes out. And even Power Girl, when Amanda and I did Power Girl with Justin and Amanda and I, we did 12 issues, but they let us do whatever we wanted on it. And it's still looked at as like, that's the Power Girl book. That's the one where it worked out this stuff. I think because I'm a real big comic book reader. So I think I had the perspective of always ask the questions, why do I like this character? What did they want and what did they fear? And if I can answer that, I can pretty much create a character that you feel like and then I get lucky with my artists. I always have great artists.
I wanted to ask you, have you ever put an Easter egg in a comic book that you've written?
If you look in the Harley Quinn series, which is over 100 and something books, there's a lot in there that's about me and Amanda and stuff. There's a lot there. There's a lot you can dig in, and you'll start laughing if you see it, if you're looking for it. And I think in Painkiller Jane, when I write Painkiller Jane, there's a lot there that if you know me, you kind of. Amanda always says like Jane is you. You like that's your voice, Painkiller Jane, and it's sarcastic and it's Amanda says of course she's bisexual. Of course she is, because you love girls and you're gonna make it that your character does as well. And but I think it's unavoidable on some level to do it. I remember when I wrote my first bunch of Deadpools, I wrote some stuff in them that was actually stuff that happened in my neighborhood, and they're in the actual book, because we had a guy that had an alligator in his basement. He flooded out his basement, and he had an alligator there. And he would go to the stairs and he would throw chicken down, raw chicken down, and the alligator would eat. He had a pet alligator in the basement of his apartment in Brooklyn.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
How old was this guy at the time?
He's in his 20s, I think.
Okay. Because I'm going to tell you something, and this blows my mind, okay? Okay, so true story. My father came from Italy, grew up in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Hook, okay?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So my father, my grandfather really didn't let them in the apartment. He kept them, he wasn't the kindest man when my dad was growing up. So my dad kind of grew up on the streets. Okay. My dad at the time, and this might blow your mind a little bit, but my dad at the time, his friend growing up was Joe Gallo.
Oh, Joe Gallo, yeah, sure.
Joe had a lion. My dad had an alligator. So I wonder if that could have been my dad.
I don't know. This guy just had it. I don't know if it was handed down to him or something, but he had a flooded basement, and that's where the thing lived, and everybody knew he had it there. He would never go down. He would just go down a couple of stairs, and then he would throw the chicken down to the thing. And I forgot what the alligator's name was, but we had a lot of. I grew up in a very Goodfellas type neighborhood in Brooklyn, and Red Hook. Of course, your dad probably has stories up the wazoo about that area, because when he grew up in Red Hook, it was a dump. It was literally where you would dump the bodies. Was Red Hook?
It was, yeah. And it wasn't nice.
No, and believe me, I know Red Hook. Now, of course, there's an IKEA there, and it's a whole yuppies took over there years ago. But when I was a kid, Red Hook was where the strip joints were, like the ones that for a dollar goes a long way, we used to say in those strip joints. And a lot of bodies, a lot of empty, decrepit warehouses where cars were dumped and things were set on fire. There was a book, trying to remember the book. It was something to do with Brooklyn, and had a character named Tra-la-la, and it was God, I can't remember it. But there's a whole book written about that area. But when I was a kid, you go down to Red Hook. That was like, if you needed drugs, you would go to Red Hook. Needed to buy a gun, you'd go to Red Hook. And, it was a different world back then.
Yeah, it was. My dad grew up there. He was born in 1944, I want to say, and he came to America when he was about 14, so around 1958. Uh,
58, yes. I was born in 61, so I grew up in there in the 60s and 70s. So he's a little older than me. He's like as old as my older brother, Vic is 72. How old your dad?
he passed in 96, but I'd want to, wow, to do the math, so 44 to,
44. So he's 56, 66, 76. He'd be in his late 70s.
yep, yeah, probably around
Yeah,
there.
I'm sorry he passed so early. That's too early. Too young.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
You learn from that, right? You learn
Yeah.
what killed my dad because I have to do the opposite thing.
Yes.
I you know, my dad died of colon cancer when he was 70. So, when I turned 50, I said, let me go in and get a checkup and let me stay after that. And it's so far so good.
Yeah.
But back then they didn't have that. Like they didn't have it where you go in, people would have colon cancer. They wouldn't even know it until one day they're like, I don't feel right. And then they go in and they're like, oh, you have colon cancer. Now they can check for everything. They do a blood test, they can tell 100 things.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'm glad that we have advanced so far.
Yeah.
Hopefully we continue these advancements and they don't hold the cures on shelves somewhere, but
No, it's easy, I think, in the world to get caught up in conspiracy, right? Like they're holding it. They have the cure for cancer. And then you think about when presidents die of cancer and you're like, well, wouldn't he have access to that shit?
you're right.
Or millionaires die of cancer in their 70s and 60s, and you're like, well, wouldn't have they been able to buy a dose of that?
Yeah.
So I don't think they hold it. I think what they do is they, and I know this because I used to work in the medical field in the 80s. What they do is they hold on if they make so let's say there's a replacement for like a drug like lithium or something like that, and if they have a ton of the old one, they try to sell as much as they can before they introduce the new one, because they have millions and millions of dollars invested in it. They can't just throw it in a sink or something. They dump a lot of it in third world countries and other places like that. But that does happen. But when there's leaps and bounds with technology and medical profession, I'll give a good example, like with eye surgery and stuff like that. It's leaps and bounds in the last 10 years. You can go get cataracts. You can get your everything replaced. It's amazing what they can do in the last 10 years. And I think a lot of medical stuff is technical based, right? It's technology based. So now they have things where the cameras, you can swallow a pill and it's a camera through your body. I think we're going to keep making these things. I think, AIDS, you don't hear them talk about AIDS anymore. I'll give you another example. My brother, my oldest brother, Vic, had leukemia, and they gave him probably like around 8, 9 months to live, and unless he can find a bone marrow transplant, and it was a stem cell transplant he needed, and I donated stem cells. I did it for my brother is cancer free and running around like a monkey right now.
Oh wow,
And,
that's amazing.
yeah, and it was don't get me wrong, it was a process for both of us, but especially for him. I mean, they had to take his immune system to zero. And then, because that kills all the cancer in the body. And then I had to donate stem cells, which basically is done through the blood these days. It's no longer that bone marrow thing with the needle. I don't do that anymore. They do it through blood. I had to go in for a week, get 3 shots in my stomach every day to get my body building up the stem cells. But, I'm no spring chicken, but it managed to save his life. And 10 years ago, he would have just been dead, So I do have faith in it. I'm still waiting for the Star Trek thing where they just stick it like that and all of a sudden, I'm waiting for some genius to come up with something besides a needle, because I'm not a big fan of needles. And I think working with my brother through his stuff, I was like, I'm going to just deal with this head on. And I still can't stand them.
That's an amazing story though. Like that's something that I don't think I ever heard you talk about before. So
yeah, I don't mention it because it's your brother, right? You're gonna help him any way you can, and I'm really happy it worked out. I during the whole process, because it took like almost a half a year, more than half a year. It was stressful, and but I always say I look on the internet, so many people are going through so many terrible things. I'm always like, I give them support, but it's not about me. I talk about it because I think like it's amazing what they can do now, and you know, it's just I have a lot of faith in technology. I think technology is going to save a lot of things, and I'm hoping the planet as well. I think technology is they're gonna figure out a way to make trees grow quicker.
Yep. Though,
right?
I just want to draw real quick, speaking of technology, and like going by my name, I have cerebral palsy.
Okay.
So just in case you weren't sure.
I thought that was somebody being a wise ass. They gave you that name. It's such a Brooklyn thing to call somebody like, Palsy Pete or, whatever.
It is. Yes, it is.
Palsy Paul, but so you have it.
Yeah. And when this is my gamer tag. So when I switched to it, my mom goes, "So are you trying to tell people how smart you are?" I said, "Yeah, that too." Yeah, that too. But technology wise, Elon Musk is working on that little brain implant to help with and that's something that would help somebody like me, actually.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of technology that I'm looking. I probably will never see it in my lifetime. I'm not much younger than you, so.
Right, but the thing is, Paul, there's a whole book on the speed of technology, right?
Yeah.
So nothing moves quicker in our world than the speed of technology because there's so much money at stake.
Yep.
Technology is the fastest moving thing there is. Like I'm telling you, like it's the racehorse of everything, right?
Yeah.
So there's a book on how, because technology creates technology to make technology smarter, the smarter technology starts building on itself.
Right.
So the part that's hard for them, and because Amanda and I actually did a thing with NASA a couple of years ago, and I learned this. The thing that's harder for them is they need the creative minds to come up with the ideas to actually do something. Okay, so in the 70s and 80s, technology was taken from sci-fi shows. So if you look at 2001, in the beginning of the movie 2001, which was done in the late 60s, right? I think it was 69, maybe. I'm not sure. But there's a scene where they're up at the space station and he calls home and he takes a card out and swipes it. And then he picks up the phone and calls up. There was no such thing in the world then. But they created, that's what they said, we're going to put your ID and everything on a card. Well, when they saw that in the movie, technology said there must be a way we can create a strip where we can do something like that.
Yep.
And they call them futurists. Like Steven Spielberg did he had a convention. He had a group of futurists meet in a hotel because he was doing that movie with Tom Cruise with the balls that they predict the crimes. I can't remember.
Priority Report or
Minority Report. Minority
Report. Yeah.
So when he did Minority Report, he invited these futurist scientists, these people that think about what the future is going to be, and had a meeting in a hotel and used all the ideas in that movie. So remember Tom Cruise walks into the mall and it scans his eye and then all the ads on the wall are going, "Hey, you'd look great in this." And it shows like all this stuff was basically what people were coming up with back then.
Yeah.
And so Amanda and I did a talk at NASA years ago, and never in a million years would I think they want me and Amanda to talk to a bunch of scientists at NASA. But they explained to me that said, you guys are storytellers. You know how to say something in a way where people understand it. It's a layman's type way of saying it. He goes, we have brilliant minds that don't understand how to explain it to people. So we did a whole talk on how to say what you mean and how to talk to people that don't understand what you do. And the swap for that, and while doing that, is that we did it on the day that they had a launch, so we got to watch the launch.
Oh, nice!
From NASA, we got to watch one of the SpaceX launches, the closest you can get without the thing exploding in your head on you. But it's an interesting thing. So I think technology, I have a lot of faith in it. I think it's figuring out ways to pull water out of the atmosphere, energy out of the sun. I'm hoping there's a chance we can sort of like add more green to the planet because we obviously need that. Everybody lives in a place where we get upset because they keep knocking down whatever green is and putting a house. And everyone has the same kind of upset thing. And the realistic joke is we don't need more houses. We have so much. We have more housing than we have people. But anyway, back to the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
A little bit of that is covered, and well, I hope in our lifetime soon,
Yeah.
they come up with that thing, and you get to have that, and we see the difference. I have faith in it, man. I do.
So I do want to ask you, how long is your Kickstarter running for?
I think it's 3 more weeks, maybe a little less, maybe like maybe 20, 18, 19, 20 days. It ends, and when it ends, it ends. That's the end of it. So yeah, I think we got a couple more weeks left.
And do you have any future Kickstarters planned after this?
I do. I have I can't say what it was, but I can tease that I did a book for DC Comics, and it was supposed to go past issue 12, and it didn't. But we did the 13th issue. So I asked DC if I could put out the 13th issue with their cooperation. It wasn't a popular series. I don't want to say what it is because I'm not allowed to announce it yet. It wasn't a super popular book, but it's still something I always wanted to put out there.
Okay.
That one will be like the collection of the books plus the 13th issue. That's going to be an easy one. Like it's going to be probably a softer or hardcover collection, and that's it. Like, so that's my next one. And then I have another Sex and Violence coming.
Okay.
And that one's a killer. So that one I'm super, super proud of. We're working on, Amanda's finishing her story in it. So she's doing a story in there. But that would be number 4, I think. That would be Sex and Violence number 4.
By the way, I just checked. There's 22 days left on the current Kickstarter.
22. Thank you. So 3 weeks. Yeah, it's doing well for having just been out for a week. We hit the goal already. We're working on stretch goals. But I will say the numbers are low. Like it's only like less than 600 backers so far. My average is usually 1,000. So I have to like shake up some. I got to shake some trees to get some people to back it, because I noticed that even though the money is good, the amount of backers is less. And I always worry about that, because I always think, did I not do a good job on the last one that they're not backing this one? You know what I mean? I get in my own head about stuff. But it just means I have to go out there and promote it a little more, because there's a lot of noise out there in the world of, so you get lost. Once in a while, a campaign gets lost. The Hunters was a really tough one for me because it was a Western, and people usually don't back Westerns, and everyone warned me not to do a Western, but I told them, I'm like, I don't care. I want to do this story, and Chad wanted to draw it, and I'm really proud of the book. But we literally, I won't say we broke even. I lost a couple of bucks on it, but I'm so proud of the book. So it's all good.
So
yeah, I was gonna say, you gotta backer me as soon as I can do it next week after I get paid. But and I'll tell you why real quick. You said you got it from Tarzan. Well, just to let you know, I'm actually a 6th cousin from Edgar Rice Burroughs, the original Arthur of Tarzan.
Wow.
And
that's wild.
Yeah, and Johnny Weissmuller on the same side of the family, he was one of my great uncles.
No kidding. That's I mean, he was my my favorite Tarzan. He was Tarzan.
Yeah.
Johnny Weissmuller. I mean,
everybody started there. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody after it looked like a muscle guy, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that guy, he was an Olympic swimmer. That guy would swim down those streams chasing stuff, and I'd be like, there's no special effects here. That guy is he's doing it.
He was the real thing. Yeah. I never got to meet him, sadly, but it is my little claim to fame there that I have Tarzan in the blood, basically. But
he might have been passed away before you were born, right?
No, he passed away in the early 70s.
Oh, he did. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the movies live on. I see them once in a while on Turner Classics.
Yep.
They'll run them once in a while.
They're doing a 4K remaster that I don't know if it's dropped yet, but I know it's coming out if it hasn't.
Of a set of all of them?
One of the main ones, I believe. But
okay.
If you're interested, though, you might want to look it up.
Yeah, I'll get it, of course. I mean, anything. I do have the old box set of them, and you know, and they're beautiful copies. I mean, they're
Yeah.
beautiful movies, but you know, they're just, if anybody hasn't seen them, they're actually creepy and scary, and like I will say, like, they just have an atmosphere to them that nothing has anymore. You watch these kind of movies now where they make the jungle movies. It's so how do I say it? It's pretty
Yeah.
and they're cool, but those felt like you were actually there,
Yeah.
like somebody had a camera and they were watching like a real world stuff, you know?
Yeah, the modern remake of Tarzan is absolute not good compared to the stuff that they did in the
No.
early days.
And they were risky back then. It was before the code came in.
Yeah,
So there is nudity in them. There is, you know, this excessive violence.
yeah.
And there's excessive racism in them as well. But it, you know, you have to appreciate something for when the time it was made, you know. Um, God forbid somebody started editing those movies. I'd probably have to go to their house and smack them around a little bit.
Well, Jimmy, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to let people know about the Kickstarter? And
So we got 22 days according to Paul left, and I just want to say that, you know, if you like my work, you're gonna like these books. If you think it's a lot of money, the reality is it's probably less than a dinner you're having one night. You know, it's probably less than that. And the quality of the product is, all the money's in the book. When you get the book, you see why it costs a little bit more than anything else would. The paper quality, the spot varnish. I use different kinds of paper. We pack it beautifully, bag it, board it for you. You know, it's an experience. And when you back something like this, you're saying, I believe in this creator. It goes beyond the book. It goes to the fact that you're actually a person that's interested in the creators getting the money for a change instead of corporations or middlemen. And you know, not just my Kickstarter, but anybody's that you like or want to try something new. You know, these are the people that make it their life's business to entertain you. And it's not a lot to do to give back, but it definitely, for somebody like me, it's really appreciated. And I get to meet people at shows, and they tell me they back my Kickstarter, and it makes my day. I got to tell you, I shake their hand, we talk about it. Are you happy? I check with them, you know, what would you like to see in the future? It's what I'm doing now. I mean, I have a book called Deadly Tales of Gunslinger coming out through Todd McFarlane. That's in fall, and that's a monthly book. So that's like another gig I'm doing. But for the most part, most of mine and Amanda's energy are put towards creating books specifically that we want to do for people out there. And I hope you guys give it a try. And if you just want to even a taste, just back to digital, see if it's for you or not. And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, you can tell me. One thing about the Kickstarters is you can write me a message at any time through the Kickstarter, and I answer it every single time. So that's my pitch.
awesome. Well, I'll definitely be backing it as well. I got to look at the tiers, but I love your work. I always have. I think, you know, top quality stuff, and you're very supportive of everybody in the community. So you are a perfect example, I think, for any creator out there.
Well, thank you, caller. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys' time today too. This was fun.
And Paul, do you want to ask the icebreaker question?
Oh, no, it's not. I'm gonna next time you see him, just smack him and say that's from Paul. Thanks. I would appreciate that. So we always ask this question at the end of the interview. This just kind of gives us a feel of the person we've been talking to. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Okay. Not on my pizza.
I was gonna say,
Yes!
remember you're talking to two Italians.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Not on my pizza. Look. If you have to put a pineapple on your pizza, that means the pizza's not doing its job.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. It's sort of like look, I feel the same way about a hamburger. I don't want cheese on it. If the hamburger is good tasting, I don't need cheese on it. Now if you live in Hawaii and the shit's falling out of trees or whatever, no, actually that's coconuts. But if you're tripping over pineapples all day long and you have to throw it on your pizza and that's the way you grew up, then more power to you. I say leave it on the West Coast though. Okay, leave the pineapple. I come from a place where the pizza is so good you don't want to ruin it with other stuff. Like you don't even need pepperonis. That's how good the pizza is where I go. So no to pineapple on pizza. As a matter of fact, Amanda and I were in, I think it was Bolzano, Italy, and we're in a pizza. We're in like a, the pizzerias there are like restaurants. You get a pizza, you get a beer, and on the sign it says we do not put pineapples on pizza. It was right there on the wall. Because they must have had somebody come in and you see a bunch of crazy Italians yelling, pineapple, what's wrong with you, But no, I mean, for the guys that want pineapple on their pizza, stay away, will you?
Yeah, I know you're in our group, but go eat at the other table. Thank you very much.
I mean, I to be honest, I've never had it, right? I've never had it. So I would try it. But not on my pizza. It had to be somebody going, "Hey, take a bite of it and see what you think." So I'd just be like, "Okay." I get the sweet, the sweetness of it, but man, I don't know. How about you guys? You guys?
No.
It's not one of my favorites. I've had all kinds of pizza because my father was a pizza man. So I've had everything, and I would prefer to eat the white cheese, ricotta, and broccoli pizza over pineapple pizza.
Right. Yeah, I think it's like broccoli. It's all about how it's made, right? Because I mean, broccoli could be great or it could be horrible. But yeah, your dad was a pizza man, so yeah, your dad would be throwing the pineapple out the window.
Yes. Yes, he was.
Have you had guests try to convince you that pizza with pineapple is great?
I've had people try to convince me that.
Yeah.
A lot.
I I like pineapple separate. I actually like just a raw pineapple, cut it 4 ways down, take the core out and just eat it. It's great. When it's nice and cold, it's a refreshing. It's like watermelon. It's refreshing. I don't want watermelon on my pizza either, by the way.
Yeah, so if anybody gets any ideas, no watermelon either.
No, stop it. I see people put pistachio on pizzas. They put, and look, you go to a Brooklyn pizzeria, they'll have chicken on the pizza, and they'll have like a meat slice, which is like they call it a meat lovers thing, which always we make fun of our friends. You're a meat lover. Anyway, we have like 7 kinds of meat on it and everything. But I always went for the regular slice. I do prefer the Sicilian when it's done really well because I like the crunchy crust. I like to get a corner. Yeah. And I'm not a guy who eats the pizza and leaves the crust by the side. I'm the guy that grabs everybody else's crust because they're not eating it. And when you get a Detroit style pizza, the crust has the burnt cheese on it. Right? So because the way they make it, the cheese goes over the side. So you're eating a crust that's a burnt cheese. And that's a great taste. I also don't eat Domino's or Caesar's, Little Caesar. I don't eat any of that pizza. Pizza Hut, it's all garbage. I think it's for college students that have no, I used to say if you have no money and you're poor and you need to eat a pizza, sure, Domino's, late night thing. But you better have a couple of good beer buzz on you before you eat that crap. Because that's like nature's broom. You eat that, it's like a broom in your intestine, just pushing everything out the next day. I have a lot to say about pizza, don't I?
Apparently, yeah. Well, the next show will be all about pizza. Yeah.
Hey, listen, in my dad's pizza place, he used to have, he put up a poster. You remember Domino's the Noid back in like the 80s was a really big character. My dad had like that, I don't know what the symbol's called, but the circle with the line through it over the Noid. And he said,
no Noid.
And it said, avoid the Noid. And because my dad was well known in the pizza industry, Domino's sent a corporate lawyer in and told me how to take it down.
Wait, was your dad's place in Red Hook?
No, but he did. He learned to make pizza somewhere around Red Hook. I can't remember the name of the guy, but it was a really famous Italian pizza place that he learned at. And then he opened up Pizzarama in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. So where I grew up, I was on Avenue J. We had the Farah pizza, which is like, now you get all the yuppies and the trucker hats going there. taking the train to go there and eat pizza. But that was our neighborhood pizza. And there was another place, Frank's, and then L&B Gardens, and L&B Gardens was the big one. Um, but we had so many great pizzerias, but they all had their own style to it. There was one guy in the Junction. We called it in Brooklyn. We called the Junction. It's where Flatbush and Nostrand met. And it was all stores. And there was a pizzeria there that when I was a kid, he did a thing. It was 2 square slices, and they were big. They were not little square. They were big. So 2 square slices and a Coke for 50 cents during the week.
Nice.
Right? So it was like 50 cents cheaper than everywhere else. So I used to take the bus all the way from school for lunch. I would get on the bus, take it because I had a bus pass, get 2 slices and a Coke. The guy had it ready for me when I came in. And another pizzeria I used to go to on Avenue I that was great. It was called Frank's. And they saw me so much that they would let me deliver 2 pies during lunch for them. And then my lunch would be free. So I would go there exactly at like 12:15. They'd have a couple of pies. They'd say, here's 3 pies we need delivered. When I was out, he's like, what do you want to eat? And I said, that chicken parmesan, and maybe he's like, okay. And then I come back, I'd get to keep the tip. And then also they just feed me every day. So that was like a thing growing up when I was a kid. I did all the time.
Yeah. That's something. You don't have that mom and pop feel as much anymore that there used to be, but pizza places used to have a really good mom and pop feel.
When you come down here, you let me know in advance. I'll take it because the pizzeria I go to is the Italian guy owns it. He likes comics. He has all his comics over. It is a mom and pop place. I mean, the family owns it, and it's fantastic. You'll feel like you'll feel like you're back in Brooklyn a little bit.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, man.
I love that. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
My pleasure.